Hi everyone, my name is Jen. I'm an author and a book reviewer, and today I'm here to talk to you about some of my most anticipated summer and autumn releases. I have 25 books to talk to you about today, and everything that I mention will be listed in the description box down below. It's always fun paying attention to authors whose work I have loved before, keeping an eye on their socials or their websites to see when they announce new books. Also, I like going through publishers' catalogues, which are available to everyone. You can go to any publisher website. It's normally, if you scroll down to the bottom, you can find it. It's normally listed there where they'll have a catalogue for the next 6 months or so. So with these anticipated releases videos, I tend to do 2 roughly a year. So one normally towards the end of the year talking about spring titles, and then one around this time of the year talking about titles that will be coming out in the second half of the year. There will be more books probably that haven't been announced yet, but these are 25 I want to talk about today. I have copies of some of them. If I don't have copies of them, proof copies, advanced reader copies, I will insert the cover if those are available as we go. The first book I want to very quickly mention is my book, Please Do Not Touch This Exhibit, which is coming out in September. This is my 12th book. It's my second full-length poetry collection, and this is a collection of poems that looks at growing up as a disabled kid and having lots of operations from a very young age, and then contrasting that with going through IVF as a disabled adult and what that's like, how we storytell our way through lives. It has folklore influences, also looks at elements of the freak show and stuff like that. If you have enjoyed my poetry previously, I would love for you to check this out. And if you've never read anything of mine before and you think this might be your cup of tea, please do give it a look. I will link my website in the description box down below where there are some sample poems so you can see if you like those ones and then maybe want to check out more. Pre-orders are so important for authors, so if you think you'll like this and you would like to place a pre-order with your local bookshop, online, or with your library, that would be amazing. Okay, let's get on to the books that I didn't write myself. I thought we would begin with authors whose work I have read before and absolutely loved. My favourite book of last year was Eleanor Knows by Claudia Pinero, translated from the Spanish by Frances Riddle, and there is a new Claudia Pinero coming out this summer, which thrills me. So I don't have a copy of this yet, so I will insert the cover here. I have a Word doc here where I've been putting details to all the books that I'm going to talk about. So this is set 20 years after a shocking incident relating to our main character, Mary, who was returned, I love a return story, returned to her local neighbourhood. And she both wants to reacquaint herself with the neighbourhood, but also forget what happened 20 years ago. And I don't think that those things are going to be possible simultaneously. Part of the blurb says, Mary is not the same, not her name or her voice, not even the colour of her eyes. The neighbourhood looks different too, but she's still the same woman and it's still the same place. And as the past erupts into view, they slowly collide. This one is also translated from the Spanish by Frances Riddle, and it is published by Charco Press. Next is a book I do have a copy of, and it is Penance by Eliza Clark. I adored her debut book, Boy Parts, which came out, I think, in 2021. I actually listened to that one on audiobook, which was brilliant because Eliza narrated it herself. I'm not sure which format I'm gonna absorb this in. Probably physical, because I think I would like to read it before it comes out, but we shall see. It is about a true crime podcaster who unearths details of this murder that happened 10 years ago. I imagine it's going to be quite tongue-in-cheek when it comes to the podcasting, probably commentating on true crime podcasting itself, because the podcast in question is called I Peed on Your Grave, which I think is just brilliant, and there's lots of anxiety-inducing quotes on the back of this proof, which both excites and terrifies me. Then we have a new poetry collection from Mary Jean Chan, which is coming out in August. It's called Bright Fear. I loved their debut collection, which was called Flesh. That came out a few years ago now, and I remember reviewing it when I was the Poetry Society's vlogger in residence and absolutely adoring it. I'll link that vlog in the description box down below if you're interested, because I remember I did a close reading of one of the poems in that collection. Part of the blurb says, through poems which engage fearlessly with intertwined themes of identity, multilingualism, and post-colonial legacy, Chan's latest work explores a family's evolving dynamics, as well as microaggressions stemming from queerphobia and anti-Asian racism that accompanied the COVID pandemic. So I'm very excited to get my hands on that in a few months' time. Then I was sent this by Daunt Books last week. This is a proof of a new book by Celia Dale. I say new, it's a reissue because she was first published, I think, in the 1960s, and they reissued a book of hers last year called A Helping Hand, which I'm not sure if it quite made my favourite books of the year, but it was up there. I really very much enjoyed it. Her writing reminds me of Muriel Spark, and I would like to read more of it. So they are publishing this later this year in September. It's called Sheep's Clothing by Celia Dale, and it seems to have a bit of a similar premise. This is about two women called Grace and Janice who meet each other in Holloway Prison, and then when they are released, they decide to go on a fraudulent adventure together. They're trying to scam people out of their pensions. They visit betting shops, libraries, bingo halls, supermarkets, the post office, and park benches, marking out their next targets. It sounds great. Another author that I've been keeping an eye on is Yang Gi, whose book Strange Beasts of China was one of my favourites a couple of years ago. That was published by Tilted Axis Press. That's a work in translation, and it's translated from the Chinese by Jeremy Chang. Interestingly, Faber are now publishing their books, and these ones have been written in English, which is really intriguing. So this is the first one. There is a novel coming out, I think, next year. This is called Elsewhere, a collection of short stories from a group of writers lounging on the edge of a disaster zone to a couple who meet all too fleetingly in a cinema in Dublin. These are strange and beguiling stories of dispossession, longing, and the diasporic experience. So yeah, that one is on my list too. And then the other one, which I've kind of listed in the wrong place because this is supposed to be authors whose books I've read before and loved. This is K-Ming Chang's new novel. And let me tell you, both of her previous books have been on my most anticipated list, and I haven't read either of them. I have to have read at least one before I read this. This is the pact that I'm making with myself. For some reason in my brain, I'm just like, I'm gonna love her books, and I haven't read them yet. It's ridiculous. So her new one is called Organ Meats. I just selling it with the title alone. The cover looks like this, brilliant. This one is about two friends called Anita and Rainey who have grown up together, and they discover that they are descended from generations of dog-headed women and women-headed dogs whose bloodlines bind them together like knots in a thread. And I think one of the friends convinces the other one that she should transform into a dog so that they can be bound together forever. And then something terrible happens and they have to try and get themselves out of this mess. I think it has themes of decomposing flesh, which seems to be something that runs throughout her work. I'm getting Night Bitch vibes with the twist, and I'm into it. Okay, so that's that one. Then let's move on to other ones from authors that I have never read from before. The first one is a book from Tilted Axis Press. In fact, I have two from Tilted Axis here. We've got I Belong to Nowhere, Poems of Hope and Resistance by Kalyani, Thakur, Charal, and this is translated from the Bengali by Moromi Pramanik and Sipram Mukherjee. And this has, first of all, a beautiful cover, and second of all, the blurb says that this is an author who delineates the bourgeois values that fuel the social machinery of caste oppression while drawing parallels with social and racial marginalization around the world. Poetry in particular is so subjective, so I'm looking forward to seeing maybe some sample poems from this author to see if I really love them, and then if I do, I will go ahead and buy the book. And then we've got another book that's coming up from Tilted Axis that I'm excited about, which is called No Edges, and this is by multiple authors and it's translated by multiple people, but it's the first collection of short stories, I believe, that's been translated into English from Swahili, which is very cool. It says that this is 8 East African writers from Tanzania and Kenya sharing tales of sorcerers, Nairobi junkyards, cross-country bus rides, and spaceships that blast prisoners into eternity. And again, it has the most beautiful cover too. Then I was looking at Tilted Axis Books website, as I do often, and they have a list of publishers that they also would recommend, and one of those is Seagull Books. So I went to Seagull Books website and I saw this book, which is coming out in June, that sounds very intriguing. And again, this is a book that's been translated from Bengali. This is a novel, but I think it is drawing from the author's life quite a lot. It's called Hospital by Sanya Rushdi, and it's translated from the Bengali by Arundava Sinha, and it's set in Melbourne, Australia, where a woman in her late 30s is diagnosed with her third episode of psychosis amounting to schizophrenia. But the narrator is somebody who has studied psychology herself, and she's finding it so weird to be told things about her own body that she has studied and which she can't relate to when she is the subject matter of these conversations. And everything is feeling more detached and unreal to her because of the knowledge that she has about her own condition. And I think that this sounds really interesting. Another couple of translated books. In fact, I think lots of the books I'm talking about today are translated. Anyway, I talked about Strangers Press a few weeks ago. They are a small publisher based in Norwich, and they publish work in translation. They publish chapbooks, so each book is around 50 pages long. Normally it's a novella or it's a series of short stories. They have a set from Japan, one from Korea, one from the Netherlands, and one from Switzerland. They have a new mini-series, several mini-series coming out this year of 5 pamphlets in each set, and the first one is a set from Lithuania. They also have a set coming from Japan, Korea, and another one from Taiwan later in the year, but these are the ones from Lithuania, and again, like all of their books, their covers are absolutely beautiful. I think my favourite cover from the series is this one here called Death and Other Stories by Vidas, which is translated from the Lithuanian by Katrina Garansvili, and it says this is an enthralling selection of shorter stories in which, among many other things besides, we encounter death as a supernatural beast presence trapped inside a box only to escape and cause mayhem in a local village. That sounds wonderful. And the quote here says, "It suddenly rushed out onto the road as if chased and leapt straight into my arms. That is how I ended up taking it home." I love that. We've also got Juvenilia by Virginija Kulvinskaitė, which is translated from the Lithuanian by Julia Gulbinovic, and this is a memoir about a spring in adolescence. It says that spring, as if by agreement, we got it into our heads that something should finally happen, something should finally change. Also in the series we have Taxi Driver by Jurga Tumasonytė, which is translated by Sasha Wilde, and I think I may be intrigued by the premise of this one the most. It's about a taxi driver called Rasma. It says Rasma hated her dreams, they made her feel sick. She rested best when she fell into complete silence and darkness. Rasma is a taxi driver with a mysterious past, a mysterious present, and an uncertain future, and a complex relationship with a double. We follow her through a series of encounters, professional and personal, some troubling, some comic, some profound. The fourth one is a chapbook called The Sleep of Birds by Tomas Vaiseta. It's translated by Jeremy Hill, and this is 2 short stories which are contemporary gothic, and we'll see how those play around with body, because sometimes I am not a fan of that because they can fall into tropes, but I'm still excited to read that one. And then the final one in this series is Bodies by Akvile Kavaliauskaite, and this is translated from the Lithuanian by Erika Lastovstraite. It says, he asks what she thinks. She says it's hard to imagine the same thing he imagines. No matter how close you are, it's impossible to get inside someone else's head. This is a short story collection, obviously a small short story collection, about a successful filmmaker, a young couple who visit a nudist beach, and then a woman who has lost her husband, and an insurance salesman who finds himself obsessed with the voice of a client on the phone. Those were all of the Strangers Press titles. Now moving into Pushkin Press titles. There were several that they're publishing later this year that intrigued me. The first one is Kang Hwagil's Another Person. This is translated from the Korean by Claire Richards, and I read this author when I read all of the Korean translated books published by Strangers Press, and I did enjoy what they had written. And then I looked up the premise of their other books, found this one, and was immediately hooked, because this is about a woman who has recently come out to talk about sexual harassment in her workplace, and then she's getting so much hate for it online. Who is Gina? Is she the stupid woman who ruined a young man's promising career? The weird loner whose university boyfriend thinks she has a victim complex? The naive country girl who ignored her friend's cry for help? The survivor. I think if you enjoyed I May Destroy You and Promising Young Woman, that will be up your street too. Then they are also publishing these 2 novels. Summer Fishing in Lapland. This is a Finnish novel by Juhani Karila, and this is about a woman who goes to Lapland on holiday or visiting her family. She's going to her remote family farm in Lapland, and she discovers that she has to catch a local pike in a local pond, and if she doesn't do that in 3 days, then she and the love of her life will both die. That hooks me, no pun intended. I love it when folklore is woven through books, of course. This is translated from the Finnish by Lola Rogers, and this one is coming out in July. They're also publishing this in August, which is Hangman by Maya Binyam. This is about a man who's returning to sub-Saharan Africa after 26 years living in exile in America, and he comes back home and doesn't recognize anyone or anything, but then a man meets him at the airport and says that he's his brother. He calls him brother, and then they go on a journey together. It says that it is an existential comedy, a tragic farce, a slapstick tragedy, a shocking original debut about exile, diaspora, and the search for Black refuge. As I said, this one is coming out in August. And then also Pushkin are doing more in their Japanese novella series, which excites me a lot. They brought out a series of books a few years ago, and I've read a couple of them. I absolutely love the Hiromi Kawakami Record of a Night Too Brief. I will insert them here. I also really enjoyed Miss Ice Sandwich by Miko Kawakami, which was part of that set. It's since been reissued by them with a different cover, but this is what the original set looked like. And they're bringing out a series of 4 Japanese novellas this year, 2 in the summer and 2 in October, and I'm intrigued by all of them. One of them is about a young girl who addresses her stepmother, who was moved in shortly after her mother's death in unusual circumstances. The girl shows strangely detailed knowledge of the older woman's life, and as her stepmother settles into the house, the girl's obsession sharpens into an ever finer point. This one sounds like it's probably been inspired by various different fairy tales. It's called Nails and Eyes by Corey Fugino, and this is translated by Kendall Heitzman. So that's number 1. That's coming out in the summer. The other one that's coming out in the summer is called Napoleon Nippon by Kazushige Abe. This is translated from the Japanese by Kira Miyasa. This is about a 17-year-old who's spending all of his time in his Tokyo apartment researching rare birds, and he wants to save them from humans who he doesn't think are treating them fairly, and because he's so isolated, his behavior becomes really erratic. It says he then begins sourcing weapons and preparing for a reckoning. So that's that one. Then one of their Japanese novellas that they're publishing in October is manga. So this is new. I don't think that they've done this as part of the series before. It's called Kafka by Nishioka Kyodai, and it's translated from the Japanese by David Yang. These are graphic short stories inspired by Kafka, and the art style looks really beautiful. I'll insert a picture of that one here. And then the final one is by an author whose work I haven't loved previously, but I'm still intrigued by this title. It's called This Is a Miko Do You Copy by Natsuko Imamura, who is the author of The Woman in the Purple Skirt, which was a book I really wanted to love and just couldn't really connect with, but I do recommend it a lot to people because it seems that many other people really love it. It says, other people don't seem to understand Amiko. Whether eating curry rice with her hands at school or peeking through the sliding doors at her mother's calligraphy class, her curious, exuberant nature often results in confusion. When her mother falls into a depression and her brother begins spending all his time with a motorcycle gang, Amiko is left increasingly alone to navigate a world where she doesn't quite fit. Subtle and moving, this is a tender portrait of childhood through the eyes of a unique, irrepressible young girl. When I do these lists, some of these books I'm really confident that I'm going to love, and some of them I'm less sure about, but the premise has intrigued me and I'd like to see other people's review before deciding whether or not I want to pick it up. This next book falls into that latter category. This is To the Forest by Anise Barbaro-Lavalette, who is a Canadian author. She writes in French. This is translated from the French by Rhonda Mullins. This is about 2 families who flee the city at the beginning of the pandemic to live in the forest. I am getting, oh my goodness, what's the phrase? Captain Fantastic vibes, but if that was a horror movie. So I think they go and live in an old house in the middle of the woods, completely separated from the rest of humanity. It says winter seeps through the walls, the wallpaper is peeling, and the mice make their nest in the piano. Without phones and internet, they turn to the outdoors where a new language unfolds. 5 children become tiny explorers, discovering nature and its treasures while the adults reconnect with something greater than themselves. I'm guessing that dark and twisted things are going to happen. So that's that one. Another one that I'm intrigued by and am being sent a proof of, and I'm going to see if I'm going to fall in love with it, but it has the potential to be something that I adore. And this is Shark Heart by Emily Hebeck, and this is about a married couple and the husband is told that he is slowly turning into a shark, and they have, I think, a year before he becomes a shark. It's obviously an allegory, an extended metaphor for illness, So I'm intrigued to see how that is handled. And then the final one is one that I do have a proof copy of, and this is the most beautiful cover. This is Tomb Sweeping by Alexandra Chang. It says, Alexandra Chang immerses us in the lives of immigrant families, grocery store employees, expecting parents, and guileless lab assistants. A woman known only to her neighbours as the Asian recycling lady collects bottles from the street she calls home. A young college grad ponders the void left from a broken friendship, and an unfulfilled housewife in Shanghai finds a secret outlet for her ambitions in an undercover gambling den. Those are 25 books I'm super excited about that are coming out in the next few months. I would love to know what books you are most looking forward to. Let me know in a comment down below. I'm sure that there will be other new releases that will excite me. I have checked, there is not a new Nikki French coming out this year. Whoa, I will cope. There is one coming out next spring, so we can hold on a bit longer for that one. But just in case anyone was wondering, I have checked and there isn't one coming out. I would love to know what you're most excited about in a comment down below. As I said, all the titles are also listed in the description box. If you're new to my channel and you like this video and you would like to subscribe, that would be very nice. And also, if you enjoy my content on here and you have a spare dollar to throw in the tip jar, that would be very lovely, very helpful. I have a Patreon account, which I'll link in the description box down below. Patreon is a place where you can tip creators, and the support over there helps to fund my time creating free content for everybody on here, and also funds my time making it accessible, creating captions and all of that good stuff. Support over there is very much appreciated. So if that's something you're interested in, that would be very kind. I hope you're all doing okay, and I will see you this time next week for a reading vlog. I think that is the plan anyway. So sending lots of love to all of you, and I'll see you soon. Bye.